Maybe you have to tell Mr. Wafa again. He's not unmuting himself.
Yeah. Namaste and good morning.
Good morning.
On behalf of Sahitya Akademi and Foundation of SAARC Writers and Literature, I heartily welcome you to the 11th session of the South Asian Online Literary Conference. In this session, we will have paper presentations and fiction readings as well. The panel in this session is consisting Dr. Niaz Zaman from Bangladesh, who chairs this session, and Ms. Yashodhara Mishraji from India, Mr. Anwar Wafa Samandar from Afghanistan, Ms. Jackie Kabir from Bangladesh, Dr. Ranganath Pathare from India. At the outset, to begin with, I request I request Ms. Yashodhara Mishraji to present or read out from her fiction.
Good morning.
Good morning. I request Yashodhara ji to briefly introduce yourself first and make your presentation in 12 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hearty welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Namaste, Ajit ji. Namaste, friends, all the participants, and good morning, everyone who is listening, who is watching. I'm Yashodhara Mishra, an Oriya writer, and I have taught English. I've been a professor of English, and I've worked as the guest editor of the journal Indian Literature by Sahitya Akademi, and I have written and published short stories, novels, poetry, and travelogues, and my works have been translated. Everyone. Namaste, Ajit ji.
Please continue.
Hello.
Yeah. You are.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you are. Please continue.
Okay, I will start reading. This is a story, The Scene Within. Let me explain. This story was written quite some time back, when the modern age of technology was just beginning to come to our country and also to the subcontinent, and especially to the remote areas. The Scene Within. Dr. Anita was the only physician in this small hospital, the only health center in this entire region. Apart from health issues, hello, I hope I'm audible because I can't see myself.
You are audible, madam, and we can see you on screen.
Okay, thank you.
No problem at all. Please continue.
Apart from health issues, often Dr. Anita had to tackle personal, even family problems of her patients. This was again part of a life drama today. The man said he had already had the operation. This is the vasectomy operation. So where did the child in her wife's womb come from? And the wife said it was not her fault if the operation failed. It happened to men all the time in nearby villages. At this, the man started menacingly at her, forgetting the doctor's presence. So many people we know had the operation and nobody's failed, and only mine did, you, and a string of abuses. Somehow pacifying them, Dr. Anita said, "You go home now, think over and come tomorrow. We will do the tests if necessary, no worries." 2 days later, she was busy in her room when Peon Kishan entered, and after placing her cup of tea on the table, got busy arranging the shelves. His face said he wanted to say something. Anita sipped at her tea and asked, "Looks like the couple is back again. Have they decided finally?" Crinkling his withered face in a smile, Kishan responded, "No, ma'am. They come to the hospital but start arguing and fighting all over again. Will you please have a word with them, ma'am?" Amita smiled and said, "Why don't you do that yourself, Kishan? You belong to this area. Just persuade the man to get his tests done, and they can forget about the whole thing." But you know his problem, ma'am. He won't get his tests done unless there is a male doctor to conduct them, or else his village people will have a good laugh at his expense. On the first day itself, Anita was asked by the couple to intervene, to which she had replied, "Don't you see that it's not the business of a doctor to decide on such a matter? If you insist, we can have the tests to find out if the vasectomy operation has really failed." But the man insisted that he wouldn't be fooled that way. How could a woman decide such things about a man? And he had pleaded before her with folded hands. "Please, Dr. Nima, take that sin out of her. Get her tummy washed. Only then can she enter my house and take care of my children." At this, the wife started yelling and wailing again, arguing at the top of her voice, "I won't let you people kill me. I won't let my tiny kids be orphaned of their mother for no fault of mine." So this scene had been going on for the past 2 or 3 days. The woman had been telling the hospital staff how all this was a drama planned by her husband because he wanted to bring home a second wife. Their whole village knew she would never look at another man other than her husband. At this, the man would rush at her, raving and ranting that he was kind enough to keep his wife for the sake of his kids only if he gets her tummy washed, or else he would just axe her into two and kill her at this very instant. And now the hospital staff as well as some patients would surround them and spend the next 2 hours pacifying, scolding, even threatening them. Dr. Anita decided to put her foot down, saying, "Look, you two, will you please get out of this place now? I have had enough of this." The couple was silenced, the man nodding his head politely and the woman sniffing into her side. Anita had to change her tone. "I was just asking you to make up your mind at home and come back only if the decision has been taken for the abortion." The couple had left at that, but this morning things were back to square one. The woman asked Dr. Anita, "Ma'am, I'm ready to kill the life growing in my womb because my husband would throw me out of the house and keep my 3 children and start a new life again. And anyway, the entire sin will be on his head because I'm helpless. But what if I die in the process?" Anita had to retreat to her room again, leaving her to the hands of the hospital staff to prepare for the procedure for the abortion. Kishan came in with this lame excuse and started. "It's the way they live, ma'am, these villagers. Their festivals and celebrations are all like that. All they need is a chance to booze and dance all night to drum beats. That is the root cause of it all." "How is that related to this case?" Anita had to break her resolve not to encourage gossip. Kishan grinned and started with redoubled enthusiasm. "How can one keep one's senses after good booze, ma'am? And then it's so dark, and there is the moonlight, and the scent of forest blooms in the breeze. Have you seen how they live? Their dark little huts, ma'am? How can you blame them? Do they have neatly divided rooms in the house? Or electric lights? Do they have bazaars and markets to cheer themselves up?" So, such mistakes do tend to happen during festivals and boozing. But no one takes such mistakes as life changing issues, you know. Anita could guess that Kishan was trying to explain something perhaps about his own people. So she asked, "Why are they fighting then if such mistakes keep happening and are no big issues?" Kishan seemed to think hard to explain and said, "If it's these new ways that have come, hospitals and operations and radios and whatnot, that is what is messing up these poor people's lives, man. Now they do this operation on a man and tell him you can never become a father now. But then his wife gets to be with a child. Who is to be blamed? You tell me." Anita was startled by something. It was the nurse giggling away at Kishan's words. Anita couldn't suppress a smile either and asked Kishan, "So you think hospitals and operations are the real culprits? They were happier without them?" Kishan scratched his head, trying to remember something, and said, "If it had been my childhood days, ma'am, the man in such a situation would just pounce on his wife and give her a good thrashing, if he really had another man in his view. The wife would get a few blows and kicks from her husband, and the neighbors would come to pacify them both, and the matter would settle there. But now, ma'am, if this woman is carrying and the husband has had the operation, uh, then however much she may cry and plead, how can the poor fellow listen to her? Tell me." The young nurse Kusum was laughing out loud, but ignoring her, Kishan raised his voice and continued. "In the old times, elders used to say that the woman is like earth. Whichever seeds you put into the soil will grow into plants. But how could one say that no other plant would ever sprout there? And if it did, would anyone leave his own fields and go away?" Now Kusum was laughing uncontrollably, which even Anita found difficult to resist. Kishan tried to stop her with a stern look, but on second thoughts, decided to join the laughter. After it had died down, Anita asked Kishan, "So instead of lecturing us, why don't you go and explain it to the couple?" Kishan shook his head with a fan like waving of his hands, as if to say nothing could be done now. Removing the cups and saucers from the table, Kishan suggested gravely, "If the woman does not agree at all, ma'am, then why not just say that the man's operation has failed? They will believe you. You could even prepare a fake report of the test, you know." Amita frowned. What an impossible thing to say. Why should anyone take such a risk of making a false report too? Just then, like a new scene in the drama, the woman herself appeared at the door. Behind her, a few others. All were quiet. Wiping off her tears, the woman said that she was ready now, ready that her abdomen be washed. Her husband was standing quietly beside her. But just outside the operation theatre, Amita saw the man standing quiet and glum. As she made to enter the door, he suddenly came forward with folded hands, his voice quavering with emotion. "Ma, I had to ask you something." "Okay, what is it?" "Ma'am, you think she could die?" "What a thing to ask. Why should she die? Supposing she dies, in case she dies, do you give me your word that she won't die?" "What is this new fuss again? How can I give you my word? But normally no one dies in such a case." Gesturing him to move aside, she was about to enter when the man almost blocked her way, putting his hand on the door. Surprised, Amita retreated a step, but she saw the man almost begging her. "Ma, just tell me once, is the child mine?" There is a noise. Am I audible? Someone else's voice is coming. Okay. Gesturing to him to move it. "Yes. Ma, just tell me once. Is the child mine?" "I can't tell you anything about that." "Tell me, please, ma'am. Please say something. If you tell me once that the child is mine, then there is no need for anything else. I'll believe you." Clenching her teeth, Anita gave him a stern look. "Look, that's your problem. Don't bother me now." On the operation table lay the woman. Just as Amita was to start, there was a loud banging on the door. The nurse said, "Ma'am, it's her husband again. Get him out of here. Call the peon." The banging grew louder. Helplessly, she took off the gloves from her hands and went to the door. "What do you want now?" "Ma, let her go. Let my wife go." "What do you mean?" "I pardon her this time, just this once." "I don't understand. You are telling me that she will not have the abortion anymore?" "Yes, ma. Let the child live. Let it be born. I forgive her this time." Amita kept staring at him. Then she asked, "You mean if the baby is born, you'll keep it, bring it up?" "The child belongs to God, ma. Whoever has committed the sin is sure to suffer. She has sworn by everything. We have been witness to it." Amita was mum. She had nothing to say. And the man continued, "You know, ma'am, between a couple, who is the master? The man is the master after all. So, shouldn't he overlook a few mistakes of the woman once in a while? Amita retreated her steps. No. After some time, passing through the same veranda on her way home, Amita saw the man sitting beside the trolley, waiting for his wife to wake up from the stupor. The couple would have to walk a few miles to their village now. What would they face afterwards? Amita was wondering. A closer understanding? Or a reluctant sacrifice from one and a condescending gratitude from the other? She would never know. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the beautiful story. Now I come to Mr. Anwar Wafa Samandarji, the writer from Afghanistan. Mr. Anwar Wafa Samandarji, please first unmute yourself. Yeah, hearty welcome. Briefly introduce yourself first and make your presentation within the time frame, that is 12 minutes.
I am Muhammad Anwar Wafa Samandar from Afghanistan. I'm a writer and journalist, and also I have a organization, Mina Academy and Lab Academy, and also I read my article for my friends and dear scholars and masters and guests. The title is The Heart-Thrilling Love of Mysticism. Love is something we all need as much as air and light, says Harold Klum. Human journey as a soul begins from the ocean of love and mercy of God and ends with the conscious return to it. Human is struggling to get to absolute wisdom, power, and freedom. Mysticism as the bedrock of bending and joining the truth can only be culminated by love. From the beliefs of the American Indians to the mysticism of Jewish Kabbalah's mystic methods of Shamsi Tabriz, Rumi, Sai Baba, Bhakhati Kabir, and the living and present methods all are acting as the different branches of joining the ocean of wisdom, power, and freedom. Human sense, breath, peace, these questions. What are we looking for on the plane of space-time? Love. Yep, love. Will we find a peace without obtaining a lovely destiny? We have a trance of love in our deep memories. Human is a lover since childhood. The intimate relationship of mother and child is the first chance to manifest love in human's life. Then, throughout all the physical, mental lives, the pursuit of pure love continues. Love is the element of survival. Love is the only reason of existence. We, in any state of consciousness, we might be following any religion or in the pursuit of love, as the loving master of the way of light and sound says. The most secret part of yourself is heart of love. From an independent point of view, love is the only living worldview. Any view and belief that is based on the love of God is the higher and severe consciousness. Love rules out pantheism, discrimination, narcissism, and ignorance, and universalizes our outlook and belief, and creates an atmosphere of peace, embracement, contribution, and cooperation between mankind, and hereby the earthly home enters the golden era utopia. Thus, all the matters is divine love.
Excuse me, Mr. Anwar. Mr. Anwar, sir. Sorry to intervene, but we hear people talking around you, perhaps. So,
yes,
we cannot hear you properly. People around you are talking to one another, perhaps.
My English is very bad, and my original paper was Persian, and translated my.
Okay, please.
Yes. Yes. Thus, all the master is divine love, and this means to let others be the way they want to be, to give them the freedom we want for ourselves, to love your neighbor as much as yourself. And if those who claim it divine love understood this message, there would be a very different world. So the actual question is here: why has love not become the criterion of all? Why can't this knowledge gained by man through thousands of years of experience convince the world to love all? This is when the existence of a knowledge beyond mind and psyche, because the real necessity of mankind, this has provided the necessity of creating different schools of mysticism, Sufism, meditation, and theology in different ways. The physical, mental knowledge and civilization do not fulfill soul's all needs. As soul can create whatever it needs. Thus, human needs to stop trying to demonstrate transcendental interest, wisdom, power, freedom. All of the religions and doctrines agree that soul is wise being, but needs awakening physical shell is the earthly temple of soul, only with the slogan of love. Can this eagle be awakened? This shapeless, timeless being is in eternal for the blessing of God's unconditional love. Divine love is its only reason of existence, and the way of getting love is to give love. So, to get love, you must give love wherever and whenever, because this is the law of love. So now, how can we get to believe that we can become beings beyond space and time? As they have said, if you want to something to work, you have got to put your love into it. The fulfillment of mysticism and Sufism with a step further, with a reconsideration of the truth, alchemists, the universal conscience. As a man of God says, if one would ask, what is my mission in this life? The answer is simple: to become a co-worker with God. Ideologies and mental physical beliefs have changed the world to a battlefield, but the soul's love is sufficient for all the necessities of mankind. Know that God's love is sufficient for you in all ways. Love is the blood of life. Love is the pure consciousness. Love is unity and oneness with existence. True maturity is when you embrace the following love of God with all your heart and soul. For the real reason for our being here is to open ourselves to this burning love of God. The past and present civilization all are a varied collection of awareness for man's conformance, religions, doctrines, and credos exist for their agreement with people's consciousness. Hereby, it is the times need to respect each other's freedom and life. The better form of religion is letting other people love God in their own way, says the golden rule of Ethiopia. We Afghans are minimally practicing in this earthly school with our body and skin since for years, but still haven't learned that haven't.
Excuse me, Anwar sir. I am really sorry to intervene again, but it is your time frame that has compelled me to do that. We have set 12 minutes for each of the participants here to make presentations. Sorry to disturb you. if you allow and the chair allows, could we move on to our next writer participants? It is Ms. Jackie Kabir from Bangladesh. Hearty welcome, Jackie Kabir ji.
Thank you so much. I thank the Sahitya Akademi. Am I audible?
Yeah,
Am I
you are.
audible?
Yeah.
I thank the Sahitya Akademi and FOSWAL for inviting me to this online literary conference. I had joined another conference, which was a folklore festival in Agra, 2011. And this is my first one in the literary conference. So I was asked to introduce myself. You've already done. My name is Jackie Kabir. I'm a writer and translator from Bangladesh. I was born in Sylhet. I contribute to the Daily Star book reviews, and I also contributed in a lot of books that are published from both Bangladesh and India. My first short story collection, Silent Noise, came out in 2017 from Bangladesh. I translated Selina Hussein's River of My Blood, which came out from Rupa, and The Charcoal Portrait, I'm a co-translator, which came out from Palimpsest, New Delhi. I also contributed in Qazi Nazrul Islam's selection, Volume 2, and Unfettered, which is Badhon Hara. And I write from time to time in all the magazines. So today I also would like to extend my greetings to Ms. Ajit Kaur, Niaz Zaman, and all the other panelists with me who are present here. Now I will read a story, short story. I will try to make it abridged because we are allotted a sort of
please.
time. Yes.
Please,
okay.
I request you to follow that.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. What if the story is titled? He said she was his Achilles' heels long before she read Homer. What's an Achilles' heel? She asked with innocence of a teenager, even though she was in her 20s. She had never really grown up, her mother would tell everyone. She was too naive for the world. Achilles was a demigod, his father being a mere mortal, Peleus. But his mother, Thetis, was a goddess. She wanted him to be immortal like herself. She did everything in her power to give him immortality. She put ambrosial ointment all over his body after burning him in the fire every night. She dunked him in the river Styx, since it was believed that the immortal gods bathe in the water, and that conferred invulnerability to the bathers. There was just one problem, though. She had held him tight at his heels, fearing that she might drown, and as a result, not a single drop of water could reach his heels. Hence, the weakest part of the body was his heels. Years later, when the Trojans fought the Greek in the pretext that Trojan prince, Paris had eloped with Helen, Menelaus' wife, who was the queen of Sparta. Achilles, now renowned for his strength and skill at the war, had fought for the Greeks, but his mother has also given him the shield and an armor made by the divine blacksmith Hephaestus, which not only protected him, but also acted as a symbol of unrivaled strength. But in the end, Achilles was killed with an arrow from Paris's bow, which hit his heels. As he narrated the story to her, she had listened it with wide eyes and a gaping mouth. They would meet in the woods. She would walk around barefoot, for she wanted to feel the soft, wet grass under her sole. She would sit on benches made out of tree trunks. One day, the sky suddenly covered with heavy clouds. Everything turned black. And she was hesitant. Should she go home? But her skin wanted to get drenched in this rain. She looked at the sky, welcoming the rain. But all she could see was a ball of fire speeding fast beyond the seventh sky. It seemed to be coming right towards her. What was it, she wondered? A meteor? As it came down and landed a foot away from her, she saw a man. She asked him, "Who are you? Don't you recognize me? I'm the man who wants to give you a rose every day, if only you would accept." She looked him in the eyes and said, "Oh, I would give anything to accept those roses from you. But I have someone who gives me jasmines every other day." "Jasmines? How can you compare roses with jasmines? A rose will knock you out with its fragrance, and its color will blow your mind." "A rose can't be compared with anything else." The man paused and said, "Do you know how the rose came to the earth?" "No," she answered. "Well, a fairy from the space fell in love with a boy from the earth. She would come every night to visit him. These enraged the gods, and so they locked the fairy up in the sky. She cried and told them that she loved the boy, and that her love was true, and they shouldn't ruin something as beautiful as her love. The gods relented and turned the love of that fairy into a beautiful red rose and threw it to the earth. That's how the rose was born. People have ever since conceived the rose as the symbol of pure love. But the sweet fragrance of jasmine pervaded all over the house, and she smelled of jasmine whenever she put the garland on her hair. She loved draping herself in the fragrance of jasmine. She walked back to her house in small steps. Her head was full of his words and the way he looked at her. She put on makeup, used an eyeliner. Looking at the mirror, she did so. She imagined him saying that she was looking beautiful. She realized that everything around her had a special hue now. The next time she met him, he handed her a small leather box. It fitted on the palm of her hand. When she opened the lid, she found the most beautiful teardrops to put on her ears. She loved them. They talked of sweet nothings and dreamed of being together. She cried when they parted. She looked in the mirror to find how she was looking with her earrings. She couldn't wait to see him. She put on a white sari and a string of white pearls. Finally, she put on her earrings. But the members of her house asked her where she was heading. She had no answer for them. So, like Radha, she sneaked out when everyone was resting. She remembered the story of Radha well. Radha was created by Krishna to do Leela. But Krishna could not complete the process. So he gave her in marriage to Ayan, a student of Veda and one who practiced chastity. Ayan had vowed not to touch any woman. So Radha wanted to meet Krishna, the dark angel from heaven. But every time she wanted to go out of the house, her sister-in-law, her mother-in-law would prevent her from going out. They would take turns to do so. Radha woke up crying one day and declared to her mother-in-law that she had dreamt that her white bangles were broken. Her mother-in-law began wailing, asking how a married woman could even dream of such a thing. Radha said, "In my dream, a voice urged me to offer a prayer to the sun god in order to save my husband." In response, her mother-in-law told her to go and offer the prayer to the sun god. Her sister-in-law, Kutila, didn't believe one word of what Radha said. She told her mother that Radha was in fact going to meet Krishna and she would follow her wherever she went. As the two sister-in-laws walked by the river early next morning, Radha kept wondering how she was going to hide the fact that she was indeed meeting Krishna. In her mind, she called to her Lord to help over and over again. Krishna was waiting for Radha on the bank of the river with his flute. He knew Radha was bringing her sister-in-law. So he asked the wind to blow very strong. The hot wind blew and sand grains got into Kutila's eyes, almost blinding her with the dust. She immediately turned around and returned home, cursing the wind as she did so. Radha was more than relieved to see her sister-in-law leave. She could now meet Krishna in peace. One day, he asked her to watch a movie with her. Laili Majnu, perhaps? What would the world think if she was seen with him? She asked. So when they went to the theater, she found the whole hall was empty, apart from the two of them. Why is it empty? Because I wanted to watch the movie with you alone. And so you rented the whole hall? Yes. They watched Laili and Majnu, and Laili's father refused to get his daughter married off to someone who was named Majnun, the madman. But the end clearly made her sad as they watched the movie. Soon, we know that Majnun died. And after this episode, suddenly the man disappeared. She kept on wondering where we could be. In the woods, elsewhere, days became weeks, weeks turned into months, months into years, and yet there was nowhere to be found. She cried her heart out, and at one point she stopped crying. Where could she be? Where could he be? She didn't have any friends who could help her to locate him. She had no clues to his origins. Where was he from? From the outer sky? Is that why he disappeared like a meteor again? Had she imagined all that happened? But she felt his presence, hadn't she? The flowers, the beautiful red roses, they were still in her house, but they dried and lost their luster like her love. But a rose is a rose, even if it shrivels and looks like a faded brown artificial flower. What about her teardrops? Weren't they proof enough that he existed? What was that she felt for him? Love? Who was to say? Did anyone know for sure what love was? All the stories of love she had read about in books, were they real or were they just made up? She went around the woods and the garden. She felt as though someone had washed away the colors from the pictures she had painted in her mind. The landscape of her heart was so full of cherry blossoms once, had suddenly become barren. Nothing ever would grow there again. And yet she kept looking at the sky. For what if the meteor came her way like it did long time ago? What if? Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Jackie.
Thank you.
Now I invite Dr. Ranganath Bhattareji to share his views. Dr. Bhattare, I first request you to unmute yourself.
Is it okay?
Yeah, you're fine.
Thank you. Thanks, Krishna. I shall try to share my experiences. Actually, a single experience, really speaking, because within the stipulated time, it is simply impossible to share the experiences. I'm a Marathi writer. I write in a language which is spoken by over 130 million people. And essentially, I'm a novelist. I'll speak about the question which is frequently encountered by the authors, writers. That's like, why do you write? Actually, I have come across this question many times in my life, and I have every time answered it differently. Essentially, I'm a novelist, and the same thing I do while, say, answering to the questions regarding my novel. For example, somebody asked me, what novel are you writing at present, or what are you writing at present? Well, I try to tell him a story, and say 2 days or 3 days after, if somebody else asks the same question, I tell the story of the same novel in a different fashion. And they say, you see, you're telling the story of the same novel, but these are two different stories. Basically, I believe that a novel is multi-story, multifaceted, a sort of genre. And so that happens. The question, the answer to the question, why do I write, is also answer to a question, why I do write a novel, or why do I write novels? I think essentially it is, it's like everybody else, every other individual, there are things, lots of things happening around you, and some of them, a few of them at least, attract your attention. And not simply attracting your attention, but they haunt you in some way or other. They continue to haunt you, they continue to trouble you, you get overwhelmed, and still you have to do many things as an individual, and continue to work as an individual to earn your living. I mean, a writer cannot survive on writing in our parts of the world. So you have to do your whatever is necessary, and still in the mind of your mind, you are constantly haunted by things, and you don't find answer. It's a kind of trap not provided by anybody else. It's a kind of trap which is created by me myself. And I try to find out a door to come out of a trap. The only way for me, being a writer, is to find a door by writing, or find a way of writing to escape the trap. Now, I may sound rather absurd, but let me try to elaborate this a little further by an example. A novel named Rath, in English it is Chariot, a chariot of literary movement, I may say so. And it's about in the 1980s, 80s of the previous century, I had written that novel. Those were the days when the great Dalit literature in Marathi was at its peak, and the other sections of society, including and excluding Dalits, try to build literary movements of their own. One such moment was rural literary movement, or literary movement of the people coming from rural background. And well, what they said is, well, all the establishment is city based, and the writers from the rural background don't find any place there. They're partially correct, but see, as I have told you, I was teaching physics for a living in a college, and I was not much concerned with literature, but I was an avid reader, and I used to participate in all the literary melas and everything. And I had my doubts about the people or the leaders of this Gramin Sahitya or rural literary movement, because you see that the movement of the Dalit literature has very sound basis. Buddha, Dr. Ambedkar, and their thoughts were the basis for Dalit literature, but there was no such things. Just one thing was there. They were all writers from the rural background, and they had no place in the established setup that was prevailing then. But see, I have already told you that I was nobody as far as this world of literature is concerned, but I had I could go anywhere. I could listen to different voices in the movement, and I was intrigued. I was intrigued because I could see that the leaders of the movement had different covert motives than overtly what they spoke of. They had certain, things which they wanted to accomplish by making use of this type of movement. I wasn't certain about this, of course. There were, I was in a sort of mesh of thoughts, and I couldn't escape these things. So, not being a very good writer or very experienced writer, I was trying to find out the way out of this. As I told you, I was teaching physics in a college, and my principal told me to attend a conference at Surat, some conference at Surat, which was about 300 kilometers from my place where I work. Well, I went by a bus, and when the bus traveled through Dang district of Gujarat, which is on the other side of our Sahyadri ranges. I mean, in Maharashtra, most of the rivers start from the west and go to the East Sea. I mean, their direction is eastward. Whereas there in that Dang district, when I started, the bus was going towards west, and the river also was moving towards the west. I mean, that was something which was astonishing, kind of astonishing for me, a man who was born and brought up in the ranges of Sahyadri. So I was simply hooked to the river, and I was looking at the river. That's the only thing I did. And at a certain point, I saw a very young Adivasi girl taking a bath in open. She was almost completely nude, naked. And within a microsecond, I saw around, because I was looking at the girl. I saw around all of the passengers, most of the passengers, I should say, were looking at the girl. We were all civilized people coming from civilized background, urban, semi-urban, rural background. We were looking very greedily towards the girl. See, there were about 20 or 15 to 20 Adivasi boys sitting near the girl, about say 20 meters from her, and none of them was looking towards the girl. But we people in the bus were looking at her. As the bus proceeded further, we changed the angle of our neck and continued to look at her greedily. And finally, as it happened, it was simply impossible to change the angle, and we stopped. I stopped. I looked at the others. We were like thieves, greedy thieves. And immediately, in fact, at that instant itself, an elderly woman laughed. It was a very loud laugh, sounding like throwing of a stone in a well, which is muddy well, batak, that sort of sound. All of us, possibly, I was ashamed with that laugh. And I'll tell you, at that point in time, it occurred to me that I should write a novel, which is based on this rural literary movement and all complexities and all that. See, that seed was born there. The door to writing was open there. The door to come out of the trap was open there.
Sir, sir, excuse me. I'm really sorry to stop you here.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Discontinuing the exceedingly insightful talk. I'm really sorry, because we will have to follow the time frame. Now,
okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
No
Thank
problem.
You, now, I request Dr. Niaz Zaman, the chair of the session, to sum up the session, because we have very little time with us in hand.
To sum up the session, I was supposed to also read from my fiction. Yes, okay. So, well, first of all, very, very quickly, because we started, I just got 5 minutes. I can't do it in 5 minutes. I'm going to run over a little bit. So, Namaste, Assalamu Alaikum, Sat Sri Akal. I would like to thank Sahitya Akademi and Foundation of SAARC Writers and Literature, FOSWAL, for organizing this 4-day South Asian online literary conference. I especially thank Ajit Ji, who has been the moving spirit behind FOSWAL, and her daughter Arpana Kaur for supporting her throughout. At the same time, I would like to honor Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, whose 101st birthday it is today, and without whom we would not have had Bangladesh. This month, Bangladesh celebrates its 50th year of independence. I would also like to acknowledge the support that Bangladesh received from India in 1971 and which it continues to receive today. You have heard my name. I am Niaz Zaman. I retired from Dhaka University, but I continue to teach at IUB, Independent University, Bangladesh. I am a writer and a translator. Most recently, Alif has brought out a collection of stories. The title of the book is The Demoness, the Best Bangladeshi Stories, 1971 to 2021, in honor of our independence. I have been given a little time to read, and I will read. I'm reading excerpts. This story was inspired by an incident 5 years ago, which took place on the last Friday of Ramzan, 2016. I'm leaving a lot of passages, but I'll try to read some of the highlights. It is called The Monster's Mother. Perhaps she should have worried more, she thought, as she read Surah Yasin over and over again. The lines in her head running before her eyes could follow the Arabic script in front of her. Perhaps she should have worried when Nafis started growing his beard. Like most men from their area, Nafis and his father did not have much facial hair. She remembered how, as a small boy, Nafis used to stand on a stool next to his father in the bathroom and watch Nasir shave. Nasir would sometimes smear a little of the shaving lather on Nafis's face, and after he had finished shaving, would use the back of his comb to shave Nafis. How delighted Nafis used to be to feel all grown up. And after father and son had finished shaving, Nasir would splash some aftershave on his son's face as well. But when Nafis was 20, he had started to keep his beard. The chagla dari they had laughed at years ago. Of course, he had trimmed it, so it was just a little dark fuzz on his cheek. Where had things gone wrong, she wondered, as the words of the surah tripped off her tongue. Where had she failed? She hadn't been able to have any more children after Nafis. An incompetent, nervous doctor had attended her rather than the gynecologist to whom she had gone during her entire pregnancy. So she had had to give up the idea of a brother or sister for Nafis. But what a loving, happy child he had been. He almost more than made up for the absence of other children. She had been happy when Nafis had started to go to the mosque for Friday prayers and saying his 5 prayers a day. Nafis would often tell her how some of the things she believed about religion were wrong. When she asked him how he knew, he would tell her that it was on the internet. She had not wanted him to become a religious bigot, and so had been happy that along with his prayers, he continued to play football with the neighborhood boys. Perhaps she or Nasir should have gone to Malaysia, visited Nafis and seen if he was all right, instead of letting him manage all by himself. They had planned to go when Nasir could get leave, maybe during the long Eid holidays. They did not tell Nafis, they would surprise him. They had managed to get 2 tickets for the last Sunday of Ramzan. They would stay for 10 days after Eid. Once Ramzan begins, the month is soon over. Almost before she knew it, it was the last Friday of Ramzan. They would be leaving in 2 days to give Nafis a surprise. She broke her fast, and though Nasir wasn't fasting, he had joined her at the iftar table. Malaysia was an Islamic country, and she had seen pictures of people sitting down together and having iftar. She wondered whether Nafis had attended any of these gatherings. They had almost finished dinner when Nasir's
excuse me, ma'am, our time is actually over.
Yeah, but you know, you gave me very little time, just 2 minutes more.
And
Let me go
fine.
to the end. Let me go
Fine.
to the end, okay? They saw the TV screen, and she saw a picture of 5 young men on the screen, 4 of them with small beards, 1 of them clean shaven, all 5 with red and white check keffirs on their heads, cradling guns in their hands with smiles on their faces. How could that smiling boy be her son, Nafis? Her husband refused to accept the body. So she had gone alone to the morgue wearing a borrowed burqa so that no one recognized her. Her husband helped her, but he would not go to the morgue to receive the body. He would not bury the body. Her brother arranged the burial at their family graveyard in the village. So she had gone in the ambulance alone with the body of her child, the monster, the militant, the terrorist, all the way to the small village that she had not visited in 20 years. She had not seen the photographer, but the next day, the photograph of the lonely funeral and the woman in a black burqa had been in all the newspapers with the headline, "Mother of Militant Attends Funeral." She continued to read Surah Yasin from the beginning. She had all the time in the world now. She tried hard to forget the smiling face she had seen cradling a rifle and wearing a red and white check keffiyeh. She tried only to remember the little boy who had been her delight. Thank you.
Thanks a
I've
lot.
cut it
Thanks a lot.
drastically short. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. I heartily thank all the writer participants in this session, and let us together look forward to the next session, which will include interviews and conversation.